All right, we learned about what is going out to war in serving God. Going out to war is prayer, the time of prayer. And we talked about, the Rebbe talked about how it is that we can defeat our worst enemy. Our worst enemy is ourselves. Our urges, our misconceptions, our doubts, our fears, our inability to connect to the truth, to the creator of the universe. So the Rebbe says, okay, you have to think about it. You have to think about, first of all, what God is. This is a very essential thing for all mankind. You have to think about your creator. You have to think about God. You have to think about that God is creating all being and is creating me and you. And you have to try to feel this. And the more a person thinks about it, and the more he prays, one way of thinking of doing this is by understanding the prayers that we prayed, what's called Pesukei D'Zimra, the prayers, the praises of God that we say, which come from the Psalms of King David. King David knew what he was talking about. He really felt the Creator, and he was really inspired by that. And that's why he wrote the book of Psalms. I mean, some of the Psalms also pleading to God for help. And so that's what we have to do. We have to think about God properly. If we think properly, then maybe we'll start to feel properly, and we'll start to realize that we are creations. The whole world is this beautiful, amazing, miraculous creation of the Creator, and we'll start to appreciate God. It says, but nevertheless, you can't do it on your own. You have to have help from above. Just like in the Holy Temple, it says that there was fire that came from above that devoured the sacrifices, as well as you have to bring the fire from below. They had what do you call it? There were fires burning. There was wood fires burning on the altar. Some say there were 3, sometimes 4, sometimes 5 of burning on the altar. And the sacrifices were burned up. But there was also fire that came from heaven. The fire that came from heaven, as far as we're concerned, that is learning the Torah. And this is where the Jewish people come in. The Jewish people, by learning the Torah, they bring godliness into the world by doing the commandments and learning the Torah, because the commandments and the Torah are connected to the essence of God. Now, this is something unique to the Jewish people, right? There's all these really amazing religions in the world, and they all have their benefits to them, and they have they all have their benefits to them, and they're this, but none of the religions, I mean, there's a lot of religions in the world, none of them really take into account what happened on Mount Sinai. Even those religions that claim to be the replacements of Judaism, right? Christianity and Islam, they say that they are the new, dispensation, whatever they want to call it. But they still they don't put into this their whole recipe of making the religion God that spoke to the Jews on Mount Sinai. God that took all of the Jews, millions of them, at one time from Egypt, and spoke to them, millions of them, face to face, and gave them his Torah. All the other religions are based on one person or a few people, and they all talk about, how to get along in this world and, spiritual things you do to get into heaven. And they're more or less logical. Logically, you do these things in order to get into heaven. But Judaism says, no, that's not, the goal is not to go to heaven. Going to heaven is very good. It's wonderful. Of course, there is such a thing as heaven. But God came down to us, and he gave us his Torah. Not just 1 or 2 people saw it. Everyone saw it. And God took us all out of Egypt. And we didn't deserve it. We didn't do anything to deserve these things. God just did it. Pure blessing, mercy. And even after that, the Jews didn't really appreciate it. And God says, it doesn't make any difference. I want you to appreciate it, but if you don't, I'm still going to keep giving to you. We'll learn in the Haftorah. Tomorrow we'll learn Haftorah. We'll even learn today. We'll see. We'll hope we get to it. It says the mountains and the rivers will go away, and I'll still love you, says God. Right? You can take away all of your merits, and God says, I still love the Jewish people. What's a sign of that? The Torah. The Torah and the commandments. God gave us the Torah. He gave us the commandments. 3 million people, at least. They also had 600,000 men just from the age of 20 to 60. They also, some people say 20 and up, but 20 to 60. 600,000 men from 20 to 60. That's not counting the women, not counting the elders, not counting the children. So there was, let's say, moderate estimate, 3 million people. They all saw God. God spoke to all of them, took them all out of Egypt, gave them all bread from heaven. This is Judaism. And this God that's above, the reason he did it was so that we would be able to serve him. We would be able to serve the creator of the universe. Why God wants such a thing, I have no idea. But if he didn't want it, there wouldn't be a world. And that's the whole idea of the Holy Temple. And now that there is no Holy Temple until the third temple will be built, I just finished learning in the Gemara. There's a Gemara, the people who do the Daf Yomi. So there's the Gemara in Sukkah, in the Daf, what is it, Mem Aleph, in Sukkah. And it talks about over there that the Holy Temple can be built, and that because it'll be built, but it might be built quickly, so there's, it'll be built quickly, and therefore, there's certain things you have to watch out for, because maybe it'll be built. So Rashi, there, right at the bottom of the page, he says, maybe you can say, hey, it's going to take a long time to build a temple. Things can't happen that quickly. He says, that's if the temple is built by man, but the third temple is going to come from heaven. It's already built. That's the language of Rashi. This is the Gemara. This is not Kabbalah. The Banui v'Shuchlal, the third temple, that's his language. The third temple is already built and completed in heaven, and it'll just come down. But I don't know what that means. But, I mean, I think if we don't know what that means, it's a sign that we don't really know what anything means. Because here's this building that's who knows how many tons. I mean, you have to get an architect to weigh this thing, what it is, but I'm sure it weighs, 30 million tons, 100 million tons. A building like that, and it's there. You see it? Did anybody see it? The radar picked it up, sonar, satellite films, they get it? They don't get it. So if you don't get that, and the Holy Temple, that's the main thing, and it's there, it's a sign that we don't get anything. We have eyes and we don't see anything. But it's there. And so it is also with the Torah and the commandments. We don't really have any way of comprehending what is the reality of the Torah and the commandments. And that's why all the religions just leave it out. Even more, the religions that claim, as soon as Christianity came along and said, we're replacing Judaism, the first thing they did was take away all the commandments. No commandments, because it just doesn't fit in with any sort of system, commandments. Just get rid of the commandments. So the commandments is this essence godliness. When we do the commandments, it gives a tremendous help and assistance that we can actually change ourselves and our personality. So that's what it says, that the commandments come, it says, because the commandments and the Torah, as mundane and physical and seemingly ungodly and spiritual as they are, that is deceptive. It's not so. The truth is that the lowest things can be representatives of the highest things. The Torah and the commandments, as they come into this world, and Torah is like another book in the library, like any other book, and the commandments are any other action, like any other action. So you think, what's the difference between the Torah and, any other novel? And what's the difference between, putting on tefillin and putting on your shoes? And what's the difference? So he says, you're right. You've got a good question. And the answer is that that the lowest things are really, they come from the highest. That God wanted his essence to be put into the world. That's the commandments. And that's why it says Talmud Torah Gadol, learning the Torah is great because the Torah teaches us what the commandments are, what to do. That's the end. And also what's in the end, namely the Torah, the commandments, that reaches the essence of God. That's why it says Maisa Gadol, because in the end, the commandments are lower than the Torah. The Torah is intellect, and the commandments, any fool can do a commandment. You learn the Torah, it takes intellect. Something that's very, very frustrating. To learn the Torah and try to understand it, and then you learn and you understand, and you suddenly realize you didn't understand anything. And there's all of a sudden Tosfos asks a question, you realize, wow, I never thought of that. And then he gives an answer, and then you think, wow, that's an amazing answer. And then someone comes and gives a better answer. And then suddenly you realize, no, the first answer was even better. So that's the Torah. The Torah is intellect. Intellect is very action. It's like the difference in the university between the professors and the how do you say the janitor. The janitor is just doing these physical things anybody can do. The Torah is like the professor. The commandments are like the janitor. You're just doing these simple things. It says, but therefore the commandments, because they're lower, their source is really higher. But there has to be both of them in man, both the Torah and the commandments. Because that a person draws down through the Torah, this is the be Ratzon. This brings to a person to a certain awareness of God that makes him want to come closer to God. It's born of the where he comes from. Because Torah, the Torah comes from God's wisdom. Like we said, the Torah, when God gave the Torah on Mount Sinai, as everybody's souls jumped out of their bodies. This is the wisdom of the creator of the universe. God and his wisdom are one. When you learn Torah, when you learn the Torah and you say the words of the Torah, then God says he learns the Torah and says the words opposite you. You inspire him to say the words. But if you get so involved in the Torah that you want to come too close to God, you want to come close, you just want to leave the world totally, you have to come back. That's by means of the commandments. The commandments, that's the lowest level. That's in the physical world. That really reaches the essence of God. And this is included in the source of the essence of God above, ad Roma Milas, to the highest and the highest levels, Ein Sof Baruch Hu. That's the Lubavitcher Rebbe told his Hasidim to go and put tefillin on Jews. You see that there's Jews that they're anti-Judaism, and they put on tefillin. They put on the tefillin because they realize that God is not something that's just written in a book. That the God of the Jewish people, I would say, Ein Kelokenu. There's nothing like our God. This is not the God of the Buddhism and Hinduism and all these different religions. That's also, their religions are also very nice, but they don't really deal with God. They deal with the creation, some aspect of the creation, spiritual creation, very high levels of creation. To get to the essence of God is something which is totally above understanding, and that's what the commandments are. By means of this, God reacts. God reacts. And there is spread out godliness below, like this fire that comes from above to below, and it touches, burns up, influences our animal soul, which is, what is our animal soul? An animal soul is another word for me. Me. What I want, what I think, what I need, my plans, my future, my past, my life. That's what's called the animal soul. Not a nice word, animal soul. But if you compare it to the godly soul, so you see it's like an animal, like the difference between a man and an animal. But the man and an animal thinks about itself. That's what an animal does naturally. The godly soul thinks only about the Creator, is amazed about the Creator, in awe of the Creator. And this is not such an unusual thing, to be selfless. There's people who are musicians, people who are artists. All they think about is music and art. They don't think about themselves at all. Not at all. They're just totally devoted to music and to art. Of course, music and art are not God. And so as a result, people can be, really despicable people and be great artists and great musicians. But if a person is really devoted to the Creator, it's very difficult, although not impossible at all, to be a despicable person. Very difficult. Because an artist, there's nothing wrong with an artist being a liar and a cheater and a debauched person. An artist, a musician, you can be a decadent person. But the Torah says you're not allowed to be a liar or a cheater or to be decadent. In any case, a person that's devoted does the commandments in such a way it affects his animal soul. So it's harder for him to lie and to cheat and to be whatever it is, to be licentious. The Hachayos Gnosis Venosis, the Kisei, says that the angels, they lift up this throne that the man is sitting on the throne. And the man that's sitting on the throne, we said that was the source of the Torah and the commandments. That's what it means. That we're 613 commandments of the 248 limbs and the 600 and 365 blood vessels of the Creator. The Nosed Nosav, and this throne lifts it up. That's the level of Adam. Adam, that's the man on the throne. So when we do the commandments, that completes this idea of going to war. We defeat the animal, the enemy inside of us. Then we, instead of animal, become Adam, man. Gematria Ma, which is one of the numerical values of one of God's names. This is what's called Chochma, Koach Ma, the power of Ma. The third chapter of the Tanya talks. This is Bittul, this is what we call surrender, total involvement in the goodness and the power, the reality of God. Kaniskar, like we said, another place. Ki, the fee, because Shebechinas Gila Yisbarich, this revelation of God in the worlds is the midos, is in God's emotions. How does God created the world in 6 days? Why did he create the world in 6 days? He could have created the world in one instant. He created the world from nothing. If he can create something from nothing, and that takes no time, so for sure he can create the whole entire world in no time. Why did he take 6 days? Because it says that corresponds to a spiritual pattern, which is called God's emotions. So the world is connected to God's emotions. But the main emotion that God expressed when he created the world is love, chesed. Chesed, he created the world from pure kindness, from pure love, just giving. Like it says, because I said that the world is created from love, from God's kindness. And therefore, it's impossible. The world is God's emotions. You can't change God's emotions, or you can't change emotions at all unless you have something that's higher than them. What is higher than the emotions is wisdom. The same thing here. You think about God and you change, you come to love God and fear God and etc. But if you really want to change it from the essence, it has to be something totally above love and fear of God. And that's called God's Torah, his wisdom. Shehu Makor Torah, that this the upper wisdom of God, this is the source of the Torah and the commandments. That's what the Torah is. It says then how does the sentence say? When you go out to war on your enemy, and that God will put your enemy into your hands. You'll conquer your enemy. You'll win. Who is the enemy? What do we say? Is yourself, your own selfish impulses, urges, desires. He'll put it in your hands, in other words, the hands of your godly self. You want to do only what's right, think what's right, say what's right. But then the sentence continues on in the Torah, and it says, V'shavisa shivya, that you will take a prisoner. Hainu, Masha, B'shivya, that which was imprisoned, Etzel, Koach HaMesaba, that which was imprisoned by your lower desires, Al Yadesh Amshich et Atzmo, B'Ra'os Olam, because a person got too involved in the bad things and in the desires of this world, the Tanugav and its pleasures. It says that what? That power The world swallows up your power and it spits it out. Liot olav and nichlal gam kein b'kedusha, that it also can be in holiness. So let's take a person that he sinks himself into business. We don't have to get into, serious sins, and averas and things, that are punishable in the Torah, terrible things that are punishable. Right. Let's just take a person gets involved in business. He's really, really involved in business. He's involved in business, goes crazy. Thinks about it all the time, talks about it all the time. On Shabbos and the weekday, you could wake him up in the middle of the night and he'll understand. You say, amalgamated hubcaps just went up 3 points. 3 points. Sell. Buy. He's right there. Right? You tell him something about this, tefillin or something like that. What are you talking about? Talk to me about it in the morning. Talk about money. He's right there. How to make money. Here's about it on Shabbos. So here's this person. He's really sunk into the world. The money has him trapped. He doesn't have the money. The money has him. And what's he supposed to do? So he goes and he hears all these classes about how you're supposed to love God, and he learns the Likuti Torah. He's supposed to understand God. He's supposed to think about God. He's supposed to fear God. And he likes the Maimorim, it's very good. But then he's sunk totally into money. He doesn't love God. Suddenly he realizes he's making a big mistake. What's he supposed to do? How is he going to get out of it? And he says one way of getting out of it is doing the commandments, learning Torah, and think about what you're doing when you do the commandments and learning Torah, that it's godliness. And then when you start praying in the morning, you take a little bit more time, start thinking about God. The Torah and the commandments you do gives you an attachment from above, and also pulls down godliness from above to below, inspiration. And this will help you to get rid of all of your stupid desires and cling to God. Not that you won't be interested in money. You can be interested in money, but the money won't be a deterrent to your thinking about God and learning Torah. And, somebody's maybe is knocking on my door and my store, so let them knock, so somebody else will get the money. My money is going to go, my life is not going to be devoted to money. My money will be devoted to my life, but not the other way around. So little by little, a person thinks, listen, where did I get the money from? God gives me the money. God gives me the money. He wants me to work. I'll be in the stock market, whatever it is. I'll do my job, but I am going to not cheat, not lie, So I'll lose. I'll be a loser. I'll be a fool. Everybody will say, hey, you had a big chance for a big deal. So I didn't do it. So what? In this way, somebody has to do it. Everyone's running after money. And you see that some people make it and some people don't make it, right? After money. But if what you're running after is to be a genuine person and try to fill your obligation to God, so it could be that you'll lose your money. But there's a lot of people that lose their money and they don't have anything to do with God. So then they don't have anything. At least now you have something to do with God, so at least that you didn't lose. And that's the main thing. That's the most important thing. The problem is we don't think it's the main thing. By means of davening, praying properly, as you start to leave things up to God a little bit. Let God do something. All there is a similar tikkun, but tefillah, that's the whole idea of Shemon Esrei, Salach Lanu, forgive me, God, because we sinned. What does that mean? That until there was not an arousal from below, we have to ask God to forgive us. As soon as we ask God to forgive us, as soon as we do, immediately, on this, what happened? 1 minute. Other tikkun, and until there was not this arousal from below, let's see what happens now. 1 second. Something happened. What happened? 1 second. Let me look at the. Maybe that's the end of the thing. Maybe. 1 minute. See, it jumped the page. Hey, a page is missing. That's the one way to finish the book here fast. See, it's supposed to be page. This is supposed to be Lamed Hey, it's supposed to be page 70. Okay, so this, up to now they've been doing amazing work. 1 second, here we go. 72. One whole page got missing. All right, good. Listen. Okay, essentially what he's saying is that as soon as you arouse from below, then God arouses from above and he forgives all of your sins and takes care of all of the problems. Now I wanted to skip anyway, so this sort of helped me. Let us do, here we go. Page mem. How do we get to this? There you go. All right, this is this week's Haftorah. Now this is really beautiful here. We've got something really amazing. The Haftorah itself is really beautiful. What's the Haftorah? This week's Haftorah is from Isaiah. It's one of the 7 weeks of comfort. And it's really very beautiful because there's all these people, and I mean, when they have logically they have what to rely on, that God has abandoned the Jewish people and he destroyed the temple, and that's a sign that he doesn't want the Jews anymore and that he's through with them. So here we have the 7 prophets, and they bring all sorts of sentences from Isaiah of all people to prove it, And we don't have to do the commandments. So comes along Isaiah himself, and he says, no matter what you think, says, it's this week's Torah, this week's Haftorah. The mountains will move. 1 second. The mountains will move, and all the high places will, will crumble. And my love for you will never move. And my covenant with the Jewish people will never, same thing, will never crumble. Will never be not secure. Omar Merachamecha Hashem, says the one who loves you, God. That's what Isaiah says. The whole world can crumble. You Jews can do as many sins as you want to. You can lose all of the merits that you've got, and my love for you will never stop. My love for the Jewish people will never stop. And you have to realize that all these religions that claim that they take over this, they want to destroy the Jewish people. They want to say there won't be any Jewish people. They say intermarriage is okay. You can a man can marry anybody, and basically anything they want to, because they don't have really any laws there. And the children, so there won't be any more Jewish people. So it says, don't worry about it, says God. I have not left you. I never even thought about it. In fact, the mountains will all move, all the mountains. And it's very improbable that all the mountains in the world will move, but it's possible that all the mountains in the world could move, right? And it says, even if they do, all the mountains and all the high places move, that the whole world becomes just one big plain, right? Improbable, yes. Impossible, no, could be. It says, but that I will leave you, says God, that is impossible. That is totally impossible. No way it's going to happen. Okay, now we're going to learn what is this mountains, what are these planets, what does it mean? 13th of Elul, very good, 13th of Elul. 13th of Elul is another 4 days. 3 days. Hine, behold, Harim, the mountains. What are these mountains that will move? Hine, that's what Isaiah is saying to the Jewish people. Hine, Harim. You have to realize also that this is sort of a contradictory message. He's giving sort of the Jews a sort of mixed message. On one hand, he was in the first temple, right? And the Jewish people, they were really really sinning over there. And Isaiah was coming to tell the Jewish people to stop it. Stop doing the sins. Come on, come back to God again. So he should have said to the Jewish people, listen, if you don't do it, then that's it. God's just going to wipe you out. Think of what you're doing. Realize what you're doing. No, he doesn't say that. What does he say? You're really making God mad. There's going to be dire results from what you do. But you have to know that God says, I'm still going to love you anyway, no matter what. Stop. Come on, you don't tell a person that. Parents come to tell us, the kids, stop doing bad things or we'll kick you out of the house, we'll punish you. Stop doing bad things because we'll love you anyway. Well, what type of a thing? You're trying to scare him. He says, because what can you do? You have to tell him the truth. You have to tell him the truth. And in a way, that's even more motivating. Because God says to the Jewish people, listen, I love you, no matter what you do, don't give me pain. Do me a favor. There's someone in the world really cares for you. Someone in the world really thinks you're important. Don't let me down. That's God. God says, I'm creating you. I love you. I think you're important. Right? Now, really, the fact is God is saying this to every human being. He's saying this to every human being. But the Jews especially, he expects much more from the Jews. And on the other hand, he's empowered them to do much more. And so, therefore, you expect, but God is saying in the end, I'm never going to leave you. Hine, what is it that the mountains, what are these mountains? Hine, Harim, this is the Avos, Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. Like it says, Shimu Harim, et Riv Hashem, Beitanim Mostia Oretz. The Harim, in this case, the mountains are called Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. So even if the merits of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are gone, God says, nevertheless, I still will love you. And I will have mercy on you. I'm the one that has mercy on you. Well, that's Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They're like mountains. They stick out from the earth. Shu Shetach, which is a plain. The earth is straight. And from the earth comes a mountain that goes up to the heavens. Just like the highest mountains that are under the heavens. So it is Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. They are like the mountains to the Jewish people. The Jewish people, they are what's called God's footstool. Ha'oretz Hadom Ragli. V'natla v'nasa ad rom milas. The Avos, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, they take the Jewish people, that they're like the plain, and they elevate them. And this, it says, Mi aleh b'har Hashem, who can go up to the mountain of God? It says, Naki kapayim u'bar levav, you have to purify yourself, refine yourself. That's the idea of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Why are Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob called the fathers of the Jewish people? Because they didn't do anything for themselves. They didn't think about going to heaven. They didn't think about all they thought about is just whatever God says, they'll do. That's their whole thing. Whatever God says, we'll do. And in fact, they didn't get any rewards. They didn't, at least in the Torah, God promised them that they're going to have children like the stars in the sky, and they didn't get any children. They got to, how many? Yaakov, he had 7 sons. So he went down to Egypt. He had 70. They went down. Right? He saw millions of people. He saw like the stars in the heavens. And for sure, Abraham and Isaac didn't see it. What about the land of Israel? They was promised the land of Canaan. Did they get it? They didn't get anything. What did they get? They got imprisoned in Egypt. They all died, right? Yaakov died in Egypt. So what did they didn't see anything. They're called our fathers because they didn't get rewards, even though God promised them rewards. They didn't get, and not for one moment did they think, hey, that's it, I'm finished. Right? All these other religions, somebody comes along with a better idea, half of the people leave. Like half of the people leave. The whole religion just is gone. And Judaism, it's based on Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That they don't care what happens. They believe in Hashem. But what happens if the merit of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are gone? That's Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. That these 3 levels, they are what elevate the Jewish people. The Abraham inside of us, Yitzchak inside of us, the Yaakov inside of us. This is what elevates us to be who we really are meant to be. This is the Kalolos Kol Neshamas Israel. This is the summary of the Jewish people, the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob inside of us. This is what motivates us to be included in the oneness of God, to be devoted totally to the truth. Like it says, like it says that God's left hand is under my head and his right hand embraces me. The left hand, this is what's called the fire of love, which elevates the soul, elevates the head and the brains of the Jewish people. And the right hand, this is like someone who embraces his friend, puts your arm all the way around your friend, embraces him, even on his back. That you can elevate the person, even the backside, elevate him. Even the lower part of his soul, a hug, that's what a hug is. So Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are all different types of love of God, elevation to God. The rabbi say, Nun, why doesn't it say the letter Nun in Ashrei? Ashrei Yishvei B'techa, it's prayer, Psalm 145, and it's in alphabetical order. Ashrei Yishvei B'techa, Od Yalu Chasela. Every sentence is in alphabetical order, right? Aleph, Beis, Gimel, until it comes to the letter Nun. The letter Nun is not there. Why does not Nun? Why not Nun? What's wrong? It says why? Because it shows on Noflim, the Jewish people falling down. Because it says the Jewish people have fallen and they will not lift up anymore. And King David didn't want to say that. Now, if we can, nevertheless, came David and he did lift up the Jewish people, like it says, Somech Hashem l'kol noflim. He did put the noflim, the letter nun there. But he said, Somech l'kol noflim. God lifts up those who fall. Okay, what does it mean falling down? What does it mean falling down? Those people who fall down. We're going to see that falling down means that a person, a Jew, he doesn't have any intellect, he doesn't have any emotions, he doesn't even have any action for God. And that's what he says. I want to go to the end. It says, because there's what's called, there's two levels. There's noflim and kafufim. Right? There's what's called asurim, noflim, and kafufim. Asurim says that a person, the Jewish people, can be asurim. They can be imprisoned. Imprisoned means that they're still standing upright, but they're just imprisoned. They can't, we're in exile. Then there's a level which is called kafufim. Kafufim means that a person's head is bent down. His head is bent down means that he's sunk in the physical things of the world. It could be that he's, right? This is worse. When a person is imprisoned, so he's free, he can think what he wants, he just can't do what he wants, he just can't, but he would like to. His head is down when his kafufim means that a person doesn't even want to do what God wants. He's not thinking about God, but he does it anyway. He does it by rote. Falling noflim, he says, of a bechinas a raglayim, but the kafufim means that a person's head is bent down. Is bent down means that what? That he's not thinking about God. He's not inspired about God. But his feet, at least, the lowest level, shu inyana maisa, namely the deeds, doing good and turning from bad, actual, he still does. He's still standing in his place. He's lizar. He can be careful from doing bad. There's a lot of Jews that are like that, right? There are Jews that are like that. They have no appreciation of Judaism, but they do what their father did. They do what their parents did, right? They come back and I heard a lecture from Rabbi Nissim Mangel. He said there were three different types of people that came out of he was in the Holocaust. He says from the Holocaust there were three different types of people. There were people that from what they saw, they just gave up Judaism totally. There were Jews that they got out of the Holocaust and they just went back to doing what they did before. And then there were Jews that got strengthened by the Holocaust. They saw the great miracles of God. They saw the great evil of the Nazis, and that the Jews had no chance to stand against them. And nevertheless, they did. And they became stronger. So he says, there's some people that are like that. They just do things by rote, right? They went into the Holocaust. They came out the same thing. They're not thinking about God. They didn't become any stronger. They were religious Jews before. They did the commandments, and they do the commandments afterwards. That's a person who's called kufufin. Kufufin means his head is bent down. He keeps away from even small sins like lying and things like that. But keshehu b'chinas zeh, I'm sorry. But if this level is not complete, namely that not only is he imprisoned, there's something worse, and not only is his head bent down, he's not interested, he just does the commandments, he doesn't do bad, he does good, doesn't lie, doesn't cheat. That's called kafufim, he's bent over. But when this level is not there, that's called noflim. If a person also is not interested, and in addition to that, he doesn't do the commandments, he doesn't do what he's supposed to. In fact, and he doesn't refrain from bad things, that's called noflim. This is what's talking about a person that the mountains moved. He hasn't got the Avram, he hasn't got the Yitzchak, and he hasn't got Yaakov. A person has absolutely no love, no fear, no connection to the Creator whatsoever. No way. Said even if the mountains move and all the Avos, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you have no love, no fear, no connection to God. You're not even doing the commandments. Nevertheless, my love for you will not stop. And we're going to see how this is, God willing, tomorrow. This is going to be the whole secret of the Moshiach. Now let's do Yom Yom. What's happening today, huh? What is going on? My computer is very slow, or something is slow. It's another facet of the gullus. Let's try it again. Okay, let's go back to here. One moment. Let's not give up. Screen share. All right. Let's see. Do you see this? Can you see this? Yeah? Okay, good. Stop share. Here we go. The great elders of the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe is Hasidim. Now, the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad, he was very, very picky who he would take to be his pupils. And they were people that had to be just geniuses and know the whole Torah and etc. So those people used to say that having a private audience with the Rebbe, yechidut, the word yechida means three things. It means clear, it means designated, in other words, singled out, and it means united. Yachad, to be yachad. Yechud means that he picks this thing out specially, and clear means that something is miyuchad. He can see the thing clearly, he can well define. The sources of these come from Gemara Shkalim and Breshit Rabbah. What does it mean? Number one, to clarify, to designate a mode of service. What type of service should I serve God with? How everyone is special. That's that's what it means to make clear. To make clear what is my unique the, the obligation in the world. and a unique way of turning from bad and doing good character traits. That's what clear means. To clarify who you are. To designate means that you have to choose and find how to serve God in your unique way. And uniting, you should bind yourself in total oneness and dedicate yourself totally with this goal that you have. So Yechidut, when a person would go into the Rebbe, so the Rebbe, all of a sudden things would become clear. The Rebbe would make it clear, why am I here in the world? What is my special, unique purpose here? And it also connects you to that purpose, just like the Rebbe is connected to the truth, as you become also connected to the truth. As we'll learn more, God willing, tomorrow, 3 o'clock, there'll be a class in Chumash, Parshat Ki Teitzei. We're almost finished with the 73 commandments, and it's very interesting, the unique commandments in this Torah portion. See you at 3 o'clock, God willing.